I'm just chilling.
We're live. It says we're live. I'm always suspect.
We're probably live.
No, we are, and I'm always wrong. I'm here with Alexei Novitzky, Lucius, um, and we were talking about some things last night after the witness to the Tic Tac, who the fellow who witnessed the Tic Tac with the humanoid pilot, and I thought it was some pretty good stuff we were talking about afterwards off the air, and I asked Alexei to come back for us a little bit of that, and so thanks
Yeah,
for coming
for sure.
back. And as fate would have it, between then and now, I had some questions for you about some different issues, and but if you've got something interesting to talk about,
Well, we were just
uh,
talking about like the DSci log, right? And
yeah,
I guess UAP Society's efforts in the whole UAP thing, and also DSci log. So I mean, we just keep going with that.
yeah. Let me pull it up so people will
Yep.
know what we're talking about. We got this little project going. Let's see, screen share. Where I don't know. We've got a small team that's working on this. Just to honestly, the original goal was just to bring up the point of, or just the discussion of where we were going to log data, right? So we threw this little thing together. We've got a little page with news, about the balloon launches, and then we've got download data. You can go to those balloon launches and pick the date. Um, and then there's your metadata. You got videos, and then that's the one you handled.
Yep.
The
Yep.
one in
Vernal, Utah.
Vernal. Got that here. You know what we need to do is we need to put the team. You know what? You just made me realize we need to put the team members of those launches in here. And then here's the Sky 360 one in Germany. And this is what I was mentioning, earlier, that we can just, here's the data from their sensors. You just click on them and they download, so you can graph those or study them or whatever. And then I thought it would be kind of cool to have just a page with the data sources, listed, so that eventually we may have 20 or 30 down through here. So
For sure.
it,
And this
it,
this is all like the scientific data, right? That's being properly collected and put out for anyone to look at. I think it's great.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the question came up um, to me on Discord. They were having this little remote viewing experiment. Um, I don't know. I have a hard time following all this on Discord, but I'm an old man. But then Chris asked, can we get these results into DSI log? And my knee jerk reaction was, sure, that sounds cool. But then I thought, well, what do we? Let's get back. What kind of data do we log? Do we log data that has been collected? Like the example I gave to you was, those balloons had, gamma sensors, microwave sensors, altitude, humidity readings, whatever. That's data that can be logged from a sensor, right? And then downloaded. You know, how do you treat, uh, you know, a remote viewing experiment?
Yeah, I mean you could go about it 100 ways, really. But I guess go back to that can you open up the DSci log page?
Yeah.
Because
Oh
there I
shoot.
mean we're just kind of brainstorming right now, but you could
Yeah.
have another tab on the top potentially that says RV experiment, something
Or
of
you
that nature.
or we could have under these categories, like these are supposed to be categories: balloon launches, lab studies, ground
Right,
stations.
they'll get bigger, exactly.
We
So
could
that would
have
be one of
one.
them. Right.
We could have one that says, remote viewing or esoteric experiments or something like that. You
Yeah,
know,
I think that would definitely work, but like it would need to be verifiable, right? And so people that are being part of the experiment would need to submit their proposal, and so it would need to be almost like there would be like a username where you sign in, you submit your answer, right? So it gets announced, remote viewing experiment tonight. Now you have 2 hours to submit your answer. So people would need to sign in and submit their drawing or whatever in order to have it properly verified. And so maybe some type of login would be a thing that people could eventually get, where they log into like their personal.
And that'll be. I'm getting a little feedback now, but that'll be a thing here where we have the login.
Exactly.
Yeah, but either that or that login was originally for people like Elena, she's out there, and Crystal, who are going to be like, content, editors, and who would write the articles, who you know what I mean. That
Right.
login, that login was mainly to maintain the site, but what I'd like to have is, well, just going back to that experiment, I think what would be cool is if you had some sort of control where you had several different parties who had, the target or the outcome. You know what I mean? So that we can show people there is a control.
The target, yeah, like you're saying, it gets uploaded before anything, or even emailed to several people, so that we know, hey, this was the target, right? And so now it can be verified through more than just one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't want this to come across as, Tony's trying to control what's going on the site, but I think we do have to have some kind of standard. And
there definitely needs to be some type of structure with it for it to work.
Let's call it a structure, not necessarily a standard. Elena, you're welcome to join us. Here, I'll put the link out there. We may just get some crazies joining us now.
Sounds fun.
They're Elena and Crystal, but they're part of the team, so they may have some input. Alexei and I had some really good discussions last night. After this always happens, the camera goes off, nothing's being recorded, and like genius is spoken, right? and so I thought, well, let's do it again. And Alexei was kind enough to come back.
Yeah,
so if you want,
we probably won't even get into that stuff, but maybe we will.
I'm cooking, so I'm scattered. Oh, you can do a hangout and cook at the same time. I know.
The one thing I was thinking though with the remote viewing experiments is afterwards you need someone to review the data as well. Like, so say you have 100 people submit their drawings. It'd be nice. I mean, yeah, they can personally verify, but if we're trying to do like scientific data and collection, it almost makes sense to have some type of artificial intelligent computer system that says these 5 were really close or these 20 were really close, and then it keeps like a statistic of some sort, like your percentage, how well you've been doing, maybe. And you could actually end up having like all of that tracked pretty intelligently. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Well, the other thing, and you can see here, the reason I had these two up is because what I'm trying to do is establish a template for balloon launches.
Right.
So every time somebody clicks on the balloon launch, they know where to go to find the data.
Well, and also what kind of information, right? Like exactly, what was the max altitude? Well, it's going to be the 5th line down. Like what was right.
So if we're going to do remote viewing, it would be kind of cool to set up this standard, this operating procedure, and it's
yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. So you could have like on the top, it would almost be like the target, and it would show an image of the target, and then it would show the next image. It could be like closest results, and then the computer AI technology would basically analyze all the photos and say these 5 are the closest to the target image. So now you have your 5 closest results. So
yeah, and Eric's wondering, I don't think we said woo yet, but he's asking what is woo? What's the woo meaning? To me, the woo is kind of what we're talking about a little bit, where things that you can't really verify, but you experience them.
Yeah, it's I always go to like physical, right? So science is physical. Anything that can't be proven with science at this time is considered woo.
Right.
Right. So we need to develop technologies in order to prove the woo, basically.
Yeah, and the more we do, the closer we'll be hopefully become more understanding of the woo.
Definitely.
I'm pretty sure when we pass, we will understand the woo pretty quick.
We'll
That's my
say
theory.
it was all woo to begin with.
Yeah.
Everything everyone was saying was just wrong.
And that was one thing you and I were talking about last night. My theory is that we'll never understand the woo until we die, because we weren't created with the machinery, the capability to understand it.
Yeah, I mean, we're limited in a way. We're somewhat limited, but that's what is we? What am I? Am I only just matter, or am I, an energetic experience? Because no, yeah, I mean, now we're in the woo, right? Because we're talking about how the physical realm is even created to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, I was brought up more of a traditional sense where everything's pretty much physical, right? And but that's one thing I like about you, and that's why I was attracted to your. When I first asked you to interview was because of the things you were talking about that led me to another understanding. So, and Eric saying Tic Tacs are not woo, then I don't think so. I mean, I think Tic Tacs are physical. Elena and Crystal did it now.
Hi, Elena.
Hey, Crystal's still having problems. Her device is not connected. Are you there?
Well, if my internet isn't keeping up, I might have to.
It's a little in and out, but it's good to see you there. You can just stand there and look pretty.
I'm gonna have to leave.
I'm just kidding. That was what's it called? Chauvinistic. Sorry. What's Chad Smith's podcast say? If the Tic Tacs are ours, then no, they are not woo. Yeah. And it could be a combination. It could be some are ours and some are theirs and some are, you know, I think that's probably more likely the case that we've re-engineered, back
Yeah,
engineered.
I mean, Tic Tac's such a general term too.
Yeah.
Like, I saw a Tic Tac. I mean, that could be anything. Just means like cylinder shaped, I guess.
Someone commented after our interview yesterday that you've never seen a plasma ring around a Tic Tac, and I was like, no. If you go Google the Tic Tac, it's just basically a solid white object. That's the first time I'd ever heard someone say they had seen a plasma ring around horizontally.
Right. I've never heard of the plasma ring. I've definitely heard of the plasma donuts around the John Searle device, though. Like those create a plasma ring.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying I haven't heard of the plasma effect. I'm just saying I haven't seen it on the Tic
No,
Tacs.
what I saw with the Tic Tac, I think, was like more of the distorted water right underneath it. Wasn't that what Favor, one of the pilots, was saying? Is that they saw like the water underneath it kind of bubbling around and made a certain pattern, like a cross pattern.
Now Ray's asking me about terminating an e-wall under a sloped roof. See, Ray, from now on, if you want help, you're going to have to come on. And he's probably not watching. He's probably working.
Send him a StreamYard link and tell him you'll explain it right now.
Yeah,
we could do some ArtisanTony stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun. Elena wants to talk about the woo. I mean, the woo is so subjective, and it's such a broad. When you say talk about the woo, what do you mean? Even you have to kind of give us a target. I mean, when I think of woo, I think of the difference between what I was I grew up in the church, so when I think of woo, I think of spirituality and the difference in what was traditionally thought of as woo and what is now thought of as woo. So that's what goes through my mind, but I don't know what goes through your mind. Alexei, what goes through your mind?
Oh, I mean, as far as woo, typically a lot of stories you hear are just woo, and the reason why is because they're just not relatable to your experience, right? Like if it was something you had seen and experienced, it wouldn't be woo at all. So woo is, like you're saying, it's relative to the mind observing it or the person out there experiencing it. But I think that most people that are very, like, you could say material, they like the material world only. Anything that's non-material, you could say, is woo. Or where does the physical come from, right? Could be considered woo. Yeah, I mean, and so that's where we live in a certain, and it's a weird word to use, but density of creation, which relates to our awake state of the alpha and beta. And so you could say that dreamland could be somewhat woo. And also, what are you doing there?
I'm just showing you that. See, this is all Ray cares about. He wants me to answer him. I'm just kidding, Ray. He'll probably watch this later and go, "That's not all I care about." But he was asking me a question about how to terminate the. And see,
Yeah,
now he's distracting me. I'm gonna turn my phone off. That's what I'm
so
gonna
like
do.
but the physical reality that we experience is limited by a factor of the speed of light. Like one time the speed of light away from us, and one time the speed of light towards this. So one time the speed of light towards less dense realms, meaning the beginning of time, the smooth cosmic microwave background, and one speed of light towards the center of time, towards the center of black holes. And so the non-manifest, kind of like what Elena was just writing there, would be those different densities of creation, past the edge of the universe and also inside of the black holes in a way. But like they're all overlapping to create a now moment, which is our experience of the physical realm. And so what's important to understand, I guess, when it comes to the woo, is that like the energy is drifting inward towards center, and we're experiencing a certain distance. And each one of our conscious harmonics is tuned to a certain distance. And so you could say that delta and theta waves, when you're in dreamland, you're somewhat preparing the energy or manipulating the energy as it falls into our awake state and then passes our awake perception into a denser realm. So like that, I mean, that's definitely woo right there, right? Like talking about how
Well,
your dream
what's
state
funny
can affect the realms.
what's funny is that some people would think even the physics you're talking about are woo because they don't fit into the standard model. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
hard. The woo is a really, you can just, it's
Well,
out
so
there.
that's where I guess for that one, it's like, yeah, not many people agree that we live in a giant black hole yet, right? They still think that the universe is expanding from every single point in space and time, and that it's not, and that effect isn't just simply a result of your inertial reference frame around a greater center. So like once people really figure that one out, and they're like, okay, so we're actually in a black hole, and we only see certain distances away from the center of, ultimately the center of all time. Um, that's when that woo will be diminished, because it is scientific. I mean, to say that the universe is expanding in all points in space and time, that's great. That's our physical relationship to the physical universe. But that's in a way, that's not really what's happening if you want to look at it from a higher perspective. When you look at the manifestation of our physical universe coming from the orbits within time itself. And so that's where the woo comes into it. And how do you create technologies to manipulate that field of energy, right? And so that's when you get faster than light technologies. You get interdimensional travel. You get, you could say, even time travel, like moving into the past, into the future states. But that entire black hole exists in the right now. And so the future exists in the now, and the past exists in the now, but in different, not in our 4D past, right? It's like almost like a subspace past or subspace future, just different densities of creation. Um, and yeah, no, I mean, so I think once people get
well,
that we live at a certain distances and we harmonize with certain fields, it'll make a lot of sense.
and see you can pick anything and call it woo, right? It's just like your idea of time not being directional, right?
Right. I mean, it's directional.
Most
Yeah.
science would say it's like a river flowing in, right, and it's linear. But,
Yeah, I'm saying that river is in an
yeah.
orbit and spiraling inward towards center.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm giving examples of is just, you would have scientists disagreeing with those things. They may think woo is, time being a river that's in an orbit, So what is woo is like all over the place.
And woo is totally relative to the person, right? Like you're saying, like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So it doesn't have to necessarily be spiritual, even though, again, from my background, the woo seems like someone's trying to change my paradigm, which I have changed since I was 12 years old. I changed it myself. So, it's interesting. What is a woo? Is just a belief before it's written into a testable hypothesis.
I mean,
That
I
was
think
a,
that sounds pretty
that
right.
was that was Elena.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty right. Like any type of science before it's actually proven scientifically and experimental is almost woo, right? And once it gets proven on documented, repeatable, testable experiments, it's no
So let me
longer
show
woo.
let me show let me show Crystal something right quick. So Crystal, let me go back to screen because she's had this trouble. Share. Let's see. Share. I'm trying to share this. Dang it. Share. Stop screen. I'm going to just show her one thing, then we'll. Okay, so Crystal, up here, get on a PC. Okay, don't be a Gen Z person. Get off your phone. Get on a PC. Just
It works
kidding.
on phones.
This doesn't. You have to go up here to the little lock on your Chrome browser and see where it says camera and microphone and sound. If I click these off, my camera and it's not going to work.
I never
And
knew that was something we could do.
yeah, I'm trying to explain to her the other night. And she said, "No,
Very cool.
I'm on my phone." I'm like, "Well, you have to get off your phone." But right here, you see, it says her device is not connected, which means her microphone and her camera. And I do want you to come on here because I want our little team to be in these meetings together. So we have little project meetings on Monday nights at 7, and I'm trying to get Alexei to come, but he's always too busy.
I'm just too tired, man.
I'm just kidding.
I slept late today. It was great.
Yeah,
Catching up on sleep.
I've been having to get up at like 5:30 for months now just to keep up.
I feel like I'm still recovering from Vernal. That took that whole trip and everything took a lot out of me. Like the drive up there, I slept 7 hours, but on the way back, I slept 30 minutes. And like,
all right, Crystal, I have an old laptop I'm going to give you. Okay, you're forcing me to do this. So she says she doesn't have a PC. We're going to work it out. The AT Think Tank team is going to work it out. We're going to share. I have no idea what you're talking about. But I like the conversation. Oh, that's Chad Smith podcast. Somebody asked me earlier if I had gone mad and I couldn't figure out what they were talking about. What were y'all talking about? Doug Prentice, have you lost your mind? Well, I never found it. So I don't know that I lost it. But no, I mean, yeah, I mean, we were talking about this also last night where, this kind of thing will have people ask you if you've lost your mind, you know?
well, that's where it gets into the like born into ways of thinking, right? I got away from the word delusion. Born into a fractal of an experience. Like you're born into this country, you grow up at this school, you go to this place. That's all you ever know to be real. And so like everyone in quotes has that effect when they're growing up and living on Earth.
Why did you do away with delusion? I love that word.
I didn't want to say it. I don't want to. Don't want, right? It's a don't want. No, it comes down to like overusing the word. So at the end of the day, though, all of those fractals are delusions.
But you know what it did? You know what it did though? The first time I read your book and I saw the word delusion, I was like, it shocks you, right? It says, okay, you either have to face this or you don't, right? Or you know what I mean? And and you have to face up to your delusions, and they can, and if you don't, you'll never understand any of this.
I mean,
I think it's a perfect word.
Definitely, as far as understanding postures in mind, body, spirit, and like in relationship to your golden spot, like the word delusion is extremely powerful. And like, so yeah, I mean, objective reality, or rather, subjective reality does exist. Like we all have our own perceptions, but then you have objective reality, and that's where I argue that doesn't even exist really, because that's like all energy of our creation being canceled out to equal nothing. Because it's all in a way yin and yang, like as far as energy of creation and coming from wave patterns through a black hole. So when you look from outside of the universe into this fluid, you don't actually you can't see or make out anything. It's only when you exist within the fluid that your perceptions are being stretched and crunched, because it's all that
Yeah,
relative frame
it
of
would be
motion.
like a fish out of water, right? The
Yeah,
fish
I mean that exactly. You'd be out of
you
the
know,
manifesting universe, or out above the entire vortex of time. At that point, it just looks like nothing.
Chad says people think the woo is losing your mind. Um, you can lose your mind thinking about it too much. Probably you can probably develop because honestly, if you don't have an open mind and you keep and there's always this what am I going to say contradiction in your mind. Maybe you can drive yourself crazy. I don't know, but
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, the universe naturally wants you to be somewhere, but then all of your, you could say, postures, or the things that you naturally think, or that are you're being guided to think through media, they create a lot of pacing, which isn't natural, and it's really unhealthy. And so like you think you're going towards success and like a good future, but you're really going towards unhealthy pacing about your center. So it's like that's where that inner battle can happen, you know.
Prentice asked me if I've been eating magic mushrooms. No, I haven't. I don't believe in doing drugs. I think if I think you need to learn how to meditate on your own and learn how to because I honestly think drugs are a distraction to true meditation. I
Well,
think
they're
if you're
unsustainable.
yeah, if you put chemicals in your brain that causes them to see hallucination, causes you to see things, that's not you invoking that. That's the chemistry invoking it. That's just how. That's my opinion, and you know, I don't have anything against people who do. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just saying, it's like people who use marijuana or whatever. I'm a libertarian, man. I'm more power. I think it should be legalized. I don't think people should be spending time in jail for having a doobie in their car or
Well, I think
whatever.
it's, I mean, that's kind of like crazy to begin with, right? Like the government is literally making plants illegal. I mean,
Yeah,
plants naturally grow on the planet all over the place, and it's like you're going to ban a plant from existing. That's just
I
like, so
remember,
that's what I'm talking, like a delusion right there.
especially in the Bible Belt. I remember a friend of mine. This was like 20 something years ago. He was a farmer, probably 30 years ago. He wanted to start growing hemp to make rope with, and they wouldn't let him. He said he was barred from growing it,
Yeah.
just to be able to make. Now, maybe he didn't have the full story. Maybe that's not totally true, but that's what he thought. That's what he was told by some, FDA person or something.
Well, I mean, they made it illegal in the 70s for whatever reason, and then like now it's becoming legal again, and like all these different uses come out of hemp, like what you're talking about, like clothes, rope. They're even making bricks out of it, and it grows like 10 times faster than your like average tree stock or something like that. So it's
Yeah, if you look at
actually really helpful, you know.
some of the oldest ropes that have survived are made out of hemp.
Wasn't
So
the Declaration of Independence written on hemp paper?
I'm sure it was.
I believe it was.
They might have
Like
been
the
smoking
founding
it when they
fathers
wrote
were
it.
all about
Maybe
it.
Thomas Jefferson was smoking it when he was writing the.
I believe George Washington wrote about how he was upset that he missed his harvest, but I'm not. I don't know. That's just like
Uh,
a rumor.
uh,
Uh,
so I didn't realize. Let's see. I'm sorry. I got a frog in my throat. It's like a little tickle, like a almost like a allergy tickle. So the random content says paper companies, the forestry industry made cannabis illegal. Well, okay. Hoffman
the
put the
cotton
math.
company. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of like struggle for control of any of the infrastructure systems. Like, and that's why when politics gets involved with companies, it becomes nasty, right? Because you have this guy's like he's getting his back scratched. You'll vote for him or you'll give him this much money if you
Yeah,
make this something illegal, and now everyone's mandated to do that. Like, that's when it gets really bad. You have a few people like manipulating systems. You
yeah.
know,
Regulation breeds that kind of stuff.
definitely. It's like,
Yeah,
well, we're going to make a new traffic law. Okay, well, I'm going to buy a stock in traffic lights you know, like before the traffic lights came out.
Oh no, did Crystal make it?
That's just the generic example, but
It literally is letting Crystal join, I think. Hey,
on the
Crystal.
phone.
We're getting someplace.
Hi, Tony. Hi,
Hey,
Novitzky.
hey, you
Hello.
made it. Can you hear us?
There's no
Yes,
echo, is there?
No. Can you hear me? Because last time you couldn't hear me, but you could hear.
Okay, hold on, please. Yes, please. Hold on one moment.
Say something, Alexei. Say, can you hear Tony?
Do you hear Tony?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's a repeat going on. Hold on one moment, please.
Oh, that's because you don't have earbuds. It's feeding back through your microphone. No, the echo is crazy. That'll drive you nuts. If you want something that'll drive you crazy, just get on a little echo loop, talking to yourself.
I start
I
playing
do
with
have
it.
earbuds on.
Oh, you do?
Awesome.
Do you have the YouTube side? Turn the YouTube side off. Like mute the. If you're watching it on YouTube, mute that and just use the sound from.
Yes. Hold on, because there's two Chromes open. Hold on one moment.
Yeah, you gotta mute the YouTube side. So that's funny. That's funny how we. I was wanting to talk about standards for entering logging data, and we ended up. And I liked it. That's why I like doing these, because somehow we'll go down a path that's probably more interesting. I guess Crystal's not going to make it. Dang it. Does anybody in the audience have any more questions?
I found a crystal 2 days ago. I went rock hounding.
Can you hear me, Tony?
Yes. Can you hear me? Say something,
Yes.
Alexei. Oh, okay. What's funny is the other night she couldn't
I
hear
had
me,
to.
but she could hear Elena.
Yes, I can hear you and Novitzky. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to turn YouTube completely off. I'm sorry.
You do, or you'll get the feedback like you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry
You're
about
getting
that.
two sources of. Oh, that's okay. Nobody watches it until later anyway.
Yeah. I can't see the chat, but I'm here.
So, what do you think? What is your opinion on what the woo is? We're talking about. Well, someone in the chat had asked what does woo mean, and we got on a long conversation about it. Pretty much covered a lot of the bases. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, the remote viewing, and what was it before that? They wanted to do something else. To me, that's kind of like woo stuff.
Yeah, and that's funny you mentioned the remote viewing, because we were trying to come up with a standard or a protocol that we could use for documenting the results before we logged it on DSI.
And that's where the question comes up, right? Like, what will we be documenting? Are we going to draw some type of, in quotes, fine line of like what is acceptable to be on DSI log and what's not, right? Because you were saying, like, say now everyone wants to post their personal experiences, right? Where does that go? Is that part of like a personal login where you log in and you can post your personal experiences? And
I think if we're going to be logging decentralized science, then we have to stick to some kind of protocol.
data.
So data. If you're going to have an experience, I think personal experiences really are kind of outside. They probably factor into the woo.
Woo.com.
Woo.
DWoo. DWoo. It's
Get your
the
own woo
DSI
site.
log. It's the DWoolog.com.
Yeah, the psychic stuff, the remote viewing, all of that kind of stuff is woo to me. And so, whenever Chris did the psychic stuff before and now it's remote viewing, I just find it odd to mix that kind of thing with UFO stuff because of, well, I put in the chat why, because of a personal experience I had last year between the two. So that's just all that I'm saying is I find it odd to mix those two together because I don't know. It's just, to me, it's kind of like, I don't think you should mix the two. There is a person on YouTube who does remote viewing. There's several channels. I'm sure you've heard of Farsight, but Max Vision Remote Viewing, he does remote viewing classes every weekend on his channel. So you could watch him and get an idea of how he formats it. But my question is, why would you want to mix the woo with the UFO stuff? I just find it odd. That's all.
And and the other thing I want people to understand is I'm not trying to pass judgment on remote viewing or any kind of, what you would consider woo. All I'm trying to do is set some kind of protocol for our, when we log the result, how do we set up a process for the experiments, the protocol, the logging of it, what's the template, for every, are we going to, if we have 100 remote viewing sessions, how do we log them so that people can understand it? What's the template for doing it? There's all kinds of things like that.
I would suggest a separate Discord for this apart from the UFO, first of all. And the other thing I would suggest is, in order to do it properly, it has to be done in a blind, like what Ingo Swann and the rest of them did. A person is given a number that's associated with what they should be remote viewing. So they have no idea of what it is to begin with. And they're just given a number to focus on. And then, they document whatever they're seeing, of course, and they usually draw it. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. I don't know. Novitzky, were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, I was going to go back and actually kind of answer what random content is asking here. Basically, there is a pretty big correlation, not necessarily with remote viewing, but with consciousness aspect of the phenomenon, right? Like CE5, for example, is a very direct example. And like now with these spikes that are being measured with people's irritations, I mean, that's definitely scientific data that gets collected. And that's something that Jim Segala has been doing out in Vernal. And these
But see, that's something that can be documented, like you're saying.
Exactly. The science, the data gets documented, but to go along with that, right? I think it's important for the person that actually experiences to have some type of, I was agitated, like slight some type of paragraph of the experience at least. Like today I was agitated and it correlated with these spikes, or today I felt great and it correlated with these spikes.
Well, and if you're connected to some machine that shows,
right, that's completely different than remote viewing, but it is relating consciousness.
I think random content's probably overreacting. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be studied and it can't be studied and it can't be documented. I'm saying if one person on a Discord asks you to think of something and you give him an answer and he says, "Oh yeah, that's correct," there's no controls, there's no protocol, there's no process, and that's not scientific. So what we're trying to do is get scientific results and log them, and that's
right. That's why we have, you could say in quotes, the target gets verified by like almost like what Crystal was saying, like the method of verification before it even gets started, almost. And then to keep it unbiased, you could, like I was saying, you could have some type of artificial intelligent computer program comparing the drawings, and then it could even say these are the most accurate. So it's not even, there's no person in quotes there looking at it. But it might also help to have a person when it comes to something like that to help analyze the relationships a little bit better. I don't know.
You just need some method of control. I mean, every scientific experiment has some form of control set up. That's what we're really talking about. We're not talking about whether remote viewing works or not. We're talking about how do you document it. That's really the question.
Exactly.
And I think what we have to do, the first thing we have to do is remove all of our biases in random content, you obviously have a bias towards remote viewing. If you're going to do science, you got to remove all your biases and then be able to ask yourself the question: is this working? What is working? What's happening? And if it doesn't meet the test, then you have to be willing to say, no, it didn't meet the test. It didn't meet the requirements. You see, if you can't do that, then that's definitely not something I'm interested in logging on. If you can't be
Yeah.
objective about your own experiment, that's not science. That's called confirmation bias.
Right. And when it comes to, in quotes, convincing the world of a true reality, right, you need to have something that's like properly set up. You can't just kind of say, well, I think this and that, So having these proper tests is definitely a good step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all we're trying to do. We're not.
Yeah. So by having the target, kind of not blasted out, but sent to a few people in the email, at least one other person, so the people know, hey, that was the target, that was what was actually on the drawing, right? And then you have people submitting their drawings anonymously or by logging in through DSize. So now the target gets sent out, people submit their ideas, they're logged, it's all time stamped, and then the AI basically, or the observer, goes in and looks at the results.
Yeah.
Now you can do it very straightforward, I think.
He's saying separate woo and science, and he says quantum is woo. I don't think quantum mechanics is not woo. To me, it's not, because it's verifiable.
Well,
we've identified 12 different muons and quarks, and
they've had particle accelerators for a long time now.
Yeah. And so
well, this is why I say this, Tony and Alexia. And I mean, I don't know. So have either of you ever seen a UFO? Let me start with that question.
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen an ET?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you'll probably understand what I'm saying then. So last year, I don't want to get into this big conversation about the pandemic, whatever's going on. Just to say, I saw a gray in my third eye. Okay. Within a week, I was being spiritually attacked. And I could see this thing zapping me in the throat, not the gray, but something else, because I was actually outside of my body and I could see it. I think my beingness went out of my body because I was being attacked, my spirit. And I could see it attacking me. The next morning, I was gravely ill. Within a week, I was in the hospital in ICU for 3 weeks. I'm still sick. That was September and October of last year. So whatever is the illness, it affected me greatly. But my key thing is, I've recently just thought about how I saw a gray in my third eye about a week before all that happened. So I'm hesitant to mix these things together. That's why I say maybe perhaps a different Discord or some kind of separate media for this remote viewing, because also this remote viewing, it's a big, big subject. It's a big thing, and many things will be involved with it, I'm sorry. That was all I had to say.
Good points
about that.
Yeah, no, it's hard to, because what you're talking about, that's like an amazing experience, right? But it's hard to document that and test that, right? So it doesn't, in my opinion, that more falls within the lines of like a statistical analysis of data, as opposed to like experimental evidence in a way. So I think you could still do an analysis of data like that, but I don't, it would fall more on the lines of statistical.
Right. Well, when you have an experience with these kinds of things, you're necessarily, you don't have any way to prove it. You only know what you know and what happened. And, you know, like people who have more lucidity when they're asleep. They have more lucidity when they're astral traveling. I fall a little bit into that category. So I was lucid during the night and knew what was going on with me, even though I couldn't stop it. I couldn't, it affected me in such a bad way. I'm serious. Like I almost died. So I don't know. That's why I say I think you need to be having this in a separate thing than Chris Leto's UFO thing. I mean, I don't know if you can start a different Discord or
honestly,
I don't know.
Honestly, Crystal, we're not here to decide what people do on their Discord. I'm not trying to be nasty or anything. That's a different discussion for me personally. I'm not going to tell Chris, what he can do on his Discord or what other people.
Oh no, I meant like if you were to do this, you and Novitzky.
Yeah, we kind of. So that's where the Discord is new as far as the UAP Society, and what we have. I'm sure you've seen it. We have, for people that are watching, we have nuts and bolts, which you could say is more physical science, like matter on matter, light on light, light on matter. But then we also have the consciousness side of it, and I think that definitely falls into the consciousness side of it, the remote viewing, astral travel, basically interacting with beings while you're existing within a less dense realm, right? If you're talking about your dream states. And and how do you make that physical? I don't know if you really can, right? So like, that's where it does fall in the consciousness tab that we have up there. So I don't know if we need necessarily an entire channel devoted to that as far as UAP Society, but that shouldn't stop someone else from creating a consciousness channel,
Yeah, I think one other factor is that when you create a UAP Discord and invite so many people, there's 8,000 people.
Definitely over 5 at this point. Yeah,
you're going to have people who there's going to be percentage of them who think remote viewing is a thing, and the others are going to think that tarot cards are a thing, and there's going to be all these little subgroups in there, and that's what the channels are for.
Right.
And but for me, I'm trying to think about what a good standard is for the DCilog.com, which our goal there is to just log decentralized, the results of science experiments. So it gets kind of, you know what I mean? At some point, it gets.
Well, that's where you could say personal experiences don't really fall into that at all, in a way.
That's what I'm kind of getting at.
They
I hate
really
to say it, but they really don't.
But a properly set up remote viewing experiment would, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yes, you could set up a protocol for that. You could definitely.
Yeah.
I've had weird experiences too, Crystal. I mean, I've talked to Alexei many times off the air about them, and I try to be subjective about them, and wonder what I'm experiencing, but I don't consider any of that something verifiable. All I can do is tell someone, and they believe me or not. And most humans don't want to think about those types of experiences, so they put it out of their mind, and they just block it. So it's hard to even test, for these things.
Yeah, for me, that stuff's very real though, because we're being manifest from less dense and more dense. I want to talk about the physics of the woo here. So like, if we're being manifest from like less dense realms and more dense realms of creation, and we're literally just perceiving a certain distance, our energy in essence still does exist in less dense and more dense realms. Like, you create dimensional alignments with past and future selves, and in between that are the ethereal planes, you could say, and you still exist within there. You're just not manifest. And like, that's where other beings potentially, that's where they reside. That's where they hang out. That's where they mess around and do things.
Yes, exactly.
It's so like, to me, it makes sense. And I think that's what my model, I try to at least give people a way to see it mathematically, how it's possible. So like, I think eventually things like that could be scientifically proven, but it definitely takes the right technologies, and we're not there as far as a species.
They're so difficult to nail down. It's like with some of my experiences, and you talked about your third eye experiences, Crystal. Well, a couple of my experiences have been being awake or thinking I'm awake, being able to control physical objects like my phone, trying to take pictures, but then still having these things appear. And if I'm objective about it, I don't know. It's like if I took mushrooms, for example, I might see the same thing. So is that chemistry, or what is that? You see what I mean? Is it our own mind's chemistry creating these hallucinations,
Well,
or is it
it
a
gets,
separate, an outside force creating them? And
well,
that's the part that's hard to
yeah.
verify.
I mean,
Yeah.
like that gets into the whole discussion of, are we in a simulation, a matrix? Like, do we manifest this reality? Blah blah blah. But personally speaking, if you and Novitzky did some
Alexei,
sort of remote viewing thing yourself, I'm not good at that, though. I'm going to tell you right now. I've tried it. I'm good at other things, but I would participate. But on the Leto UFO thing, that Discord, I just am hesitant, because of my experience last year was not pleasant. My whole life's been turned upside down. So if you and Novitzky were doing the thing, yes, but
we might
I
just do it
don't.
now.
But I
That
don't.
sounds like a challenge to me.
I don't know about mixing this all with the UFO thing. Is my only hesitancy, And by the
I think I get
way,
where you're coming from now. Yeah.
yeah. By the way, I mean, like, I have some very interesting photographs which I took myself. By the way, these are not secondhand, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, I call it AI. They're quite interesting photos. I took them February of last year, whenever that horrible Arctic front came down the whole United States, clear down to the south. And it's a long story, and I'm not going to tell it right now, but I saw something coming down in my yard, and I photographed it. And it's quite interesting. That's a separate subject, but I should probably share those pictures with you and Novitzky, and you can have a look at it and tell me what your thoughts and opinion on them are. I know what I think they are, but I've had differing opinions from people. But I captured something in pictures that I don't think people can normally capture, and I don't understand how come I got it on pictures. It's really a freaky thing.
Well, you can share it with
Anyway,
me sometime.
yeah, I can. I would call them AI, is what I would call them. Novitzky's talking about AI. Well, to me, this looked like AI. This looked like a man-made, manufactured product being sprinkled down on us. And I did kind of slightly wonder if that had something to do with me getting ill later. I mean, it's a kind of a complicated thing. I was around like the high electrical area the day before I got ill, so I felt like that activated something or prompted this stuff to happen. But anyway, it's kind of complex, like I said, and that's a whole different subject, which we're not talking about right now. But I'll try to get your email and send them to you, and you and Alexia can look at them, and I'll
Yeah,
talk to you guys privately.
I'll send you a friend
I'll,
request on the Discord. Or
okay,
we
and I'll
already
talk
are
to you,
friends, aren't
and
we? We already are friends
I
on
don't
Discord.
know.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys privately about it off the air, not on the air. And then I'll explain to you kind of like what was going on at the time. But what I found most unique about it was we were into almost 0-degree temperature and negative wind chills. I mean, it was brutal outside whenever all this happened. So anyway, strange thing again. I'm a freaky person. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I'm getting that vibe. I'm getting it. I'm just kidding, Kristen.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to cheer you up a little bit. That's all. I want to address something right quick in the chat. Okay,
Yes,
so let's
sir.
go back to where this consciousness versus material thing. Okay, so
And I'm sorry. I can't see the chat, anyone, so I'm sorry. Tell everyone I can't see the chat. I apologize.
It's okay. No, you don't have to apologize. I'm just trying to address different things as they come up, and I think here's what I think. Okay, I know you don't care what I think, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I think we were created in a material world. No, I'm not a material girl, like you said. Um, uh, we are material beings. Okay, now I think we were also created with one little channel, one little possibility that our consciousness can communicate outside of this world, this reality. Okay, but for the most part, we are material. Yes, I believe that. I think evidence. I think that it's evident that it's self-evident that we live in a material world. I think that should be the most easy thing to discover in your life. Okay, but it's also comes, when we talk about consciousness, I think we have certain abilities, and some humans may even be gifted with a higher capability to tune in. But this thing of where people want to say that that we're only consciousness, or we're not material. I think when we die, then we become that thing you're talking about. But until then, we're stuck in a material world. We only have a little outlet. We have our consciousness is our outlet. It's like a cable. It's like the internet cable to the outside, to the other side. And that's just how I think. So all you people telling me I'm ignorant because I don't believe consciousness is like 100%, or we're living in some kind of I don't know. What do you
Well,
think,
so
DK?
I mean, that's where obviously we have different opinions right here, because I would say
Yeah.
that like the physical that we're talking about, that we are all physical, and all we can experience is physical, is all in a state of orbit. And when it comes to actually perceiving a realm, it has to harmonize. The two states need to harmonize in order for there to be basically a transfer of information. And so you could say that our entire physical experience is in a state of orbit. But we seem like we're stationary. But because of that, and when you look at Einstein's theory of relativity, it shows that all information, or all perceived experience rather, is relative to your inertial reference frame. And so when you think about how everything's in a state of orbit and everything is relative, you could say that our entire physical experience, yes, we are physical, but our entire physical experience is literally a certain distance away from the center of time, or increments of a certain distance. And when it comes to perceiving the physical universe, we only perceive that in an alpha and beta state of consciousness, maybe slow gamma. But like once you hit fast gamma, which is towards the afterlife, it's what everyone experiences as DMT is released into their pineal gland at the moment of death. You experience denser and denser and denser realms. I'm not saying that's not physical. It's definitely a physical relationship to a physical.
How do we? I know, but I hear all of this, but I don't see any examples of someone achieving a non-material life.
The physical will always be the physical. Like that's what I'm saying. Like when I go to sleep, my body is still here, and the physical manifestation is a relationship to the physical manifestation. So like you will never see me disappear, because my body, unless I completely change the vibration of all my physical particles, right? Like I'm not just going to disappear. But that doesn't mean that my consciousness isn't tuned to or residing in another, you could say, realm. And so like delta and theta is dream world almost. And when you map consciousness throughout the circadian rhythm around the fifth dimensional vortex of time, right, you see that it gyroscopically processes, and it hits certain distances from the center of time at certain moments. And that's why when at 10:30 at night, bang, we hit the theta field, the buzzing starts. 2:30 in the morning, bang, we hit that theta field again, the buzzing starts. Those are different realms of perceivable experiences for human consciousness, because they're all related to the factors of two when you consider acceleration towards center at light speed, as if we're living in a black hole. So that's where the harmonic relationships come into play, is like it's all it's all existing within a black hole. So it's not really that physical doesn't exist, but the physical we experience is an information matrix relating to alpha and beta and slow gamma.
I think my reality is that humans. I think
that's
humans,
my spiel.
I know, and it's a great one.
Yeah,
and I love it. But I think the problem is, I think part of this is that humans don't have the capability to take full. I think honestly, we were created so that we couldn't, and we're kind of trapped in this physical reality.
the physical body is trapped.
People don't want to admit it, so they come up with these ideas that think I can escape this, and you can't. Not until your spirit is removed from your body can you actually enjoy that 100%. When your spirit is removed from your body through death, then you will be able to roam freely in the woo. But
what about the Buddhas that sit? Now I get your point. And now let's just think about this. With the Buddhas that are like, they choose the day they die, and they literally choose to die.
Yeah, but they're dying.
They are dying. They do.
That's
what
I'm saying.
Yeah. They sit in a focused position, and they say, boom, and their body just like maintains. So it's almost like mummified. Like they almost mummify themselves when they do that. So
True.
I don't know. It's weird.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That body is stuck here in this physical reality.
Yeah.
They may have been able to remove their spirit or their soul prior to death. That's a trick that the Buddha, right? That the gurus know, right? But unfortunately, that body's still here.
But the body, so that's where, didn't the Buddha also teleport? I mean, I don't know if this is real or not, but he was said to have teleported across the river? Is that something I'm just making up? Or you've heard
I
that,
think
right?
that's in their
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
But Zemog's on my side.
Well, I mean, people can astral travel with lucidity, and part of you is not in your physical body when you're astral traveling. I've seen my own shadow body come out of me and walk into another room. I've seen one of my bodies that looked like crystal clear, sparkling, beautiful water. It looked just like me, had my hair, shape, face, everything. But that was also, I had to be one of my layers. You know what I'm saying? One of my parts. So, I mean, I think you can leave your body. I mean, I left my body when I was being spiritually attacked last year because something, made me exit for protection. I would take it, but so I mean, and you have lucidity when you can teach yourself to astral travel with lucidity. You can train yourself to do that, and then you will remember every time you astral travel. You'll remember where you were and what you did and who was there and everything.
That's a good point you made. It's like, what is your definition of I? Because if I am the physical body, then the idea of the body just being the mind spaceship is kind of thrown out the window. From my understanding, and this is always what I've heard in my dreams, is that the body is the mind spaceship within this physical realm.
Yeah.
So our body is the spaceship of this realm.
It's the vehicle, the avatar.
Realm. Yeah.
Exactly. The body is stuck, but I think through the use of technology like magic squares and like inertial reference frame,
we can break it down and transport it.
Boom. Yeah, we could jump shells.
Yeah.
But
now that would be some real science there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the interdimensional telescope will help science see this better for sure.
We got to figure out how to build one.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid to turn it on though.
So would I. Yeah, I don't. That's where I got really into it, gung ho about it, but then I really wanted to sit and think about what do we want to turn this on?
Astral travel.
What kind of telescope is it?
It'd be one that would allow your alpha and beta states of consciousness to harmonize to denser realms. So basically, by stretching space and twisting it at the proper ratios, based on that we're living in a black hole. you'd be able to naturally harmonize your awake state with a denser realm.
The
And so that
problem
means
is
that physical tools like cameras would be able to take pictures into the denser realms, because it would be like our physical body harmonizing to those
and see that's the problem.
different layers.
If you did figure out a way to densify your consciousness, it wouldn't be able to come back into your body, I don't think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If that's why
Yeah.
you expand the light state and twist it, so you literally are harmonizing our layer
'Cause
to a
that's-
denser layer,
yeah,
and that way
that's-
you're using physical tools and physical on physical. Like you'd be able to take a photo.
Elena's like, we're gonna talk, boy.
We've talked. I know she's gung ho about it. Like we're working on it.
Okay, I just want
Yeah.
I want you to show me though, because I've had all these. Okay, I don't admit any of this, but I've had all these experiences, right? But
Tony.
I'm still objective enough to question whether it's chemistry in my brain or is it something that what would we call
Well,
real?
isn't the
Right.
brain just pure chemistry to begin with? So of course, I mean, in a
Right.
way, of course, it's all just chemistry in the brain when you think physical.
Right, but
But
you know what we
that can
see-
affect this reality, this physical reality, because I've seen things from 4D and beyond affect this physical reality. I've seen that with my own eyes and experienced it. Unfortunately, it was not a pleasant experience, that thing there either. But here's a good example. I've had a lot of life interrupting things. However, previously I used to do japa twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. Novitzky, you probably know what japa is.
No. I was about to ask, what's
sounds
japa?
like coffee.
It sounds like Tai Chi.
It's
I have no
basically chanting with a mala. A high Hindu priest wrote a mantra for me, for just personally for me. So, and it's in Sanskrit. So I would do it in the morning and I would do it in the evening. And one morning I of course would get up at the butt crack of dawn, while it's still dark out, the world is quiet, less interference. So I did that. And then, I got ready and dressed for work, and I had to go out in the yard for some reason. And about a 60-foot walnut tree, the walnuts started bursting on the branches here and there. And I could hear something hitting the ground, and I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Well, these walnuts were actually bursting open and pieces dropping to the ground. And it was like not just one or two, it did it for us. I was like freaking out, and I have to say, I was a candy ass. I saw what was going on, and I was trying to figure out what was hitting the ground, and I picked a piece up, and I saw that it was part of a walnut that almost looked like it had been kind of burnt. And I'm going to tell you, I turned tail and ran in the house because I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I have no idea what caused that to happen, but I feel like things in this reality can be affected.
I agree that with things can be affected. I'm just curious. I don't know anything about walnut trees. Do they not normally burst? Is that like not a normal thing?
No. They're
No.
pesky. And they cause lots of
well, like watermelons randomly burst right after a big rain. That's all I was thinking when you said that. It's like maybe like there was a huge rain.
No, there was no explanation for it. There was no pests in it, no worms, no nothing. I've lived in this house 10 or 15 years, and the walnut tree's never done that except that one time. So I don't know what the reason was it did that. But, sometimes I think the universe and / creator will give you hints about things, try to get your attention, in other words.
That seems to be what they say. Kind of like Skinwalker Ranch feedback,
I guess if we're still having a conversation about science, what we have to do there is try to figure out what the average of all of this is, right? If one person or two people experience this out of 300 million, that's one thing, right? But if 200 million are experiencing it out of then it's something that you know what I mean. And I'm not trying to say no, anybody's experience isn't real. I'm just saying, in the context of science, how do you measure these things?
That's why I think an app would go a really long way too, where you have an app that's actually like your personal tracker in a way that you would sign into. You could do your own stuff. You could tie it into the Sky 360 system potentially. Like when you're not using your phone, you just turn it on. It points at the sky. It's swarmed in technology to that, but at the same degree, the same response, that same app could be used to document your experiences and have some type of program doing like analysis, right? Correlating events, times,
The problem
location.
is, what's the control for that, though? As
There
far
really
as,
is none. It would just come down to
yeah,
just a collection of data and then trying to
yeah.
correlate, that the data with events. That's challenging. That's why I think AI would really be able to like find different patterns. For example, they'd be able to find geolocations. It could potentially find agitation level, tortuosity of walking motion.
The
Things like that.
danger in that is, if in the end, if we do determine that it's just you know human chemistry, then we've basically confirmed the bias that we've had. It's not confirmed. You know what I mean?
Well, going off the walnut example, what creates human chemistry to begin with? Like what creates a stable walnut versus one that's exploding? And it has to do with, right? I always go back to that fifth dimensional vortex, because that's where all of our physical is being manifest from. So when you tug something in that fifth dimension, you're messing with it in the fourth dimension too. I say 5D, Crystal, because I say that our 4D would be our awake perception of time, as in past, present, future. So for me, like denser and less dense, I call 5D. Just so like everyone, because you mentioned 4D earlier, but so people that are aware, like 4D and 5D are the same in this conversation, basically. But so when you could say the physical is being manifest from the less dense and more dense realms. I forgot what I was getting at. I lost my train of thought. But
well, I mean, honestly, just this conversation alone kind of shows you how all over the place this kind of stuff is, and how hard it would be to actually study it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where
it's very difficult to study, and that's why people like Avi Loeb wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Right. He wants the data.
Yeah.
That was his major.
It's like a chicken. It's a chicken or the egg thing, right?
It's like theories are great, but I want data.
He doesn't want to study it because it's woo, but then he wants the data. But you can't get the data without studying it.
Or without having woo theories to begin with, right? Like, how do you even set up a proper experiment if you're not willing to dive into the woo?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really all we're talking about, Crystal. We're not trying to make judgments. We're just trying to figure out how, what a protocol or what some kind of scientific process might be. And I'm sure people have studied this many times before, but
well, and that's where there could be an effect, right? With your dream state. Say you have a dream and you saw like a gray in it, right? So you document, boom, dream gray, and then now you feel sick the next week, or you have some type of event. It's like saw gray, felt sick. That's a data point. I mean, it doesn't show direct correlation, but with enough events, there might be some statistical relationship there.
But how do we? Not you, Crystal. Okay. I mean, again, this is a scientific question. How do we know that someone is not just logging, a novel?
A fakeness
tonight
of
I
some
had a
sort.
unicorn.
Of
Tonight
course.
I fed a unicorn.
That's where I think that Jim Segala's device really comes into play, like the Moopus device, and having some type of data. There needs to be some type of physical data that's being collected.
Yeah.
And so his device seems to be one that's on point. It's measuring gravity fluctuations, it's measuring magnetic fluctuations, the different electromagnetic spectrums. It's a good general data collecting device that can then be used in like hundreds of ways, honestly.
I guess like an electrocardiogram or whatever that measures brain waves.
Well, and that's where I think brain waves
you know,
need to look more into slower than delta, and also faster than fast gamma. Like our systems for detecting brain waves are limited to begin with. They're only tuned to certain frequencies.
well, and I think
Yeah.
we have to.
Let's
Well,
science grab out of the womb. I like it.
I think we have to be
when I
willing
saw
to do
that gray, I'm going to tell you, when I saw that gray, I've never seen one. I've seen UFOs before a couple of times, but this just popped in and I could see it in my third eye. And I immediately just said no, and it went away. And then probably about a week was whenever all the rest of that happened. So I don't know if they're associated. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they're connected, but I thought it was strange because I've never seen one before. And I mean, Novitzky said he's seen one. I don't know what kind you've seen, but in any case, this is another reason why I just like this whole remote viewing and all this other stuff. It's just so big. It's there's so many aspects that get involved in all this,
Yeah, I mean, for me, it had to do with like it was definitely a meditation, and I want to say I was awake, but at the same time, it was very like it was just extremely weird to experience. And basically, at the end of the day, I saw what looked like half of a nutshell. So the bottom half was like a sphere, but cut, and then from middle up, I could see the top half of a gray, and it was holding out its hands like this. And it literally, that's when I learned the delusions of mankind and had that whole experience. So for me, I mean, it was a very eye-opening experience. I didn't feel sick afterwards. I was taught about the golden spot of creation, like how you have a center, your strongest stance, how there's delusion that people get instilled into, and all that stuff. So for me, it was that was my experience with it. I didn't get sick afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there were two separate things to me, but like I said, I don't know if they were connected somehow because honestly, I mean, I do believe that ETs do exist wholeheartedly, 100%. There's just too much going on and too much evidence and too many things we've seen. But I will tell you, most of the experiences that I have had were when I was fully awake. It wasn't like dream crap, you know what I'm saying? Or, just an imagination or this or that. Whenever I was really younger, I used to have precog dreams. Well, I suspected it because I kept having this deja vu feeling all the time. I greatly suspected that I was somehow, how could this be so familiar to me? Well, then I dreamed something, and then the next day or two, the same exact thing happened. The same people involved, the same conversation, the same exact word for words were said between the three of us. And so then I knew for sure that I dreamed this. I finally realized why I was having all this deja vu, and it was because it was precog. Well, that terrified me because I thought, well, if I can dream such an unimportant thing happening, then I could probably dream that something bad could happen and it could really happen. And so I just kind of went and I shut it off. I just totally shut it off. I was very young. I think I was probably about 16. I had no, growing up of anyone guiding me in anything of the spiritual matters like that. So I just got terrified and I shut it down. So, I don't feel like I need to prove anything to anyone because I've seen for myself things with my own eyes. I mean, one day I was at lunch. I saw about 20 or 30 entities chasing a hearse down the road. I mean, you can't make this shit up, You just can't.
Well, okay, so no one's asking you to prove anything.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't know how you would tell if someone was faking something, like on the app or
You
whatever.
can't. That's
I don't
kind of the
know.
point. That's kind of the point. You can't. You can't. You can't. You don't know. You're just. It's basically we're taking someone's word for it, but that's not. That's
Mhm.
not how the scientific process works. So we have to decide. We have to decide. Maybe we have a place where we log experiences, and then we have a place where we do experimentation or log data, and because in the end, that it's going to be that hard science, unfortunately, that sells, the mass of the people. Just look at it this way: if you had, scientific data that proved that there was a thing called consciousness, then more people would be open to to going there. They wouldn't be
Mhm.
considered woo anymore if we had, some sort of consensus on even part of this. People, but in order to get that, you have to be willing to say that what I experienced may not be real, right? And if
Mhm.
you can't
Mhm.
do that, and I'm talking to myself, if I can't be willing to be that objective where I can say to
Right.
myself, what I'm seeing may not be real. It may just be something that's happening in my brain. We never will get to the point to where we can objectively study it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just my theory on that.
Well, let me
That's
tell
my
you,
idea.
before I ran away out of the backyard, I actually had a few pieces of walnuts in my hand and I took them with me. So I knew that experience was definitely in the 3D, some kind of mixing of dimensions or something going on. But um, yeah, I think that on the remote viewing, if you do it the way that others have done it, and I mean, I've studied a few, you do it blindly, you assign a number to whatever someone should be remote viewing, and there's a certain process to it. There's more to it than that. But I think that, you know, someone would have to log their whatever they saw or experienced or felt, and then after a certain amount of time, then it's told what the item was that was asked to be remote viewed. I mean, that's your correlation and your proof, and that's
Yeah, you have
remote
to have more
viewing is
people.
easy.
You, you have to have more people who you'd have to have two or three people who knew the answer, so that would be a control, right?
Yeah,
You
I mean, to
like
go along with that,
like Alexei and I know it's an apple, right? We determine up front that the item is an apple, the target is an apple. We hold the experiment and we gather the data. We show the results of that, and then we don't even expose that it's an apple until after all of the results have come in, right,
Right.
and published. And with having two or three people can verify. Surely those three people are going to conspire to lie. you know,
Right.
the, but see, any number of people can conspire to obstruct an experiment. You know what I mean? So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I guess the way
Novitzky.
what? No, well, I was just thinking of ways you could do it so you wouldn't. So you could even upload an image, almost like the NFT reveals. You know how like all the NFT were already uploaded and then they were revealed. So you could have the target data already uploaded, and then there's the reveal after everyone makes their submissions. So that's a little bit different, and you don't change. Obviously, you don't change the target image, but that way it also helps eliminate that bias or potentiality of someone trying to do something there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, right, Tony?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading this comment about perception being reality, and it's not necessarily true. I mean, I can perceive that Britney Spears loves me, and that we're going to get married someday, but that's not going to happen. So, you know, I always use that as a joke in my family. It's a kind of an inside joke among my boys and I. Anytime we have a little thing like that, so yeah, really, well, Britney Spears is blah blah blah. So it's just a little funny thing to kind of
Good
demonstrate.
example.
It's a demonstration. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Perception is reality. we
Yeah,
anyway,
to me,
that's a whole
perception is
that's a whole 2 or 3 hours.
everyone's. Yeah, to me, everyone has their own lens, their own perception. Everyone's different. They view things differently with their own lens. And to me, that's perception there, is that we all look at things differently based on our belief system and our knowledge and everything else.
But that doesn't mean the sandbox has changed.
Right.
Right?
That's where the delusion gets thrown onto a reality, right? So you have like a naturally occurring universe, but then you have your personal perceptions like of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because we're biased. I mean, Tony's right. We are biased. We have our own ways of viewing things, like I said, based on whatever is our makeup,
Even me just calling this a pen is kind of like a bias, because I've now labeled it, I've categorized it. In a different country, it's like a pluma. It depends on what language you speak. And so like, no, we have a naturally occurring flow of energy and of space, but then we also have our delusional perceptions that get thrown on top of it. And those perceptions that we have and that we hold true to ourselves are what create our pacing motions, because we're trying to fulfill our perception of reality as opposed to like what reality really is.
Yeah, and you could look at it this way too. Our perceptions are basically our bias is becoming in some way, some sort of material way, a reality, right?
Well, and that's where, scientifically speaking, it's the physical in relationship to the physical. So that's like a scientific objective view, you could say, would be like how the physical world relates to the physical world. But that's not like how you're perceiving it, because you're perceiving it through your lens of experience that you like, through your postures or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I personally think we were created with certain, delusions built into our DNA.
Definitely, because every animal ultimately perceives the universe differently. Like even a cat can see more into infrared than humans. Dolphins can, echolocate.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. We have the human body and the human experience. Yeah.
Well, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to head out. I appreciate you all coming. This was kind of another impromptu discussion, and as usual, it turns into something cool. And
well, Tony, Novitzky, thanks for having me. I'm going to go ahead and step off, and you guys take care and have a great night.
You too.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
You too.
And thanks to the chat. Thanks for enduring me. Much love to everyone.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you, Tony.
See ya. So, there you go.
There you go.
That may not be the Crystal in our group. I'll have to go check now, because she acted surprised when I said something about it may not be she may be a different Crystal altogether.
Crystal's a word,
She may be a brighter Crystal, That's a play on the word crystal. Sorry. I'm not very good at playing on words.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Z-Mog. Z-Mog, you should join us sometime. Give us your opinion.
But yeah, I mean, I'm good to end the chat. But if you want to hang out just for a minute or whatever,
Yeah, we'll do that. And I want to thank everybody for coming, taking part. I love it that people in the chat make these comments and suggestions. It gives us food for thought. So thanks everyone for showing up. See you guys.
Yeah.